Right. So, firstly first, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
All right, thank you. So, where I want to start is your upcoming album, Village,
Yeah.
and I wrote down from that. It takes a village to raise a child, which is kind of a sentence you like very much. So I'd like to
Mm-mm.
start in the beginning. You grew up in Nigeria. You were born in Nigeria.
Yeah.
What role did music play when you were living there?
Um, music didn't really. Music was something that we just heard. It didn't. I wasn't crazy about it for a while until I think I was about 10, maybe, and then I started getting into Disney cartoons and I just loved the soundtracks to them. I loved, like, Anastasia was my favorite one, Lion King. I loved music when it was part of a film or part of a cartoon that I loved. And that's kind of how music really got into it. And but my family was never really crazy about music. I didn't hate music. It was just kind of that thing you heard every now and again. But I think my first falling in love with music process was through like animations and films and movie scores.
And am I right in saying that your initial kind of creative interests were more, not just music, but maybe writing and animation as well?
Yeah. I was more into like just actual like poetry, or it wasn't. I I always have and still am more a fan of expressing myself more than I am an artist. I think if I keep thinking what I'm trying to do here is express myself, not necessarily be a solo artist or a blues artist or a gospel artist or anything. I'm just here to express myself. And that comes in many different ways, and it could come in form of a poem, a book, a music video. I'm here to tell my story in any way I choose.
Was there a moment early on that you realized you needed this? Maybe when you started writing a poem?
Yeah, I think when I was leaving uni, I think that was the point where I felt like, just like my mind needs this. Like I work better when I'm allowed to be myself. When I can't be myself, I'm not really good at anything else. The only thing I'm good at is being myself. So it's more than making this. It allows me to thrive in situations. So I think about 21, I was like, yeah, I need this. I need to do this for myself.
And by this time, obviously, you had moved to England.
Yeah.
And then by moving to England, obviously, well, I talk about the title Village, you become part of a different community.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you, kind of, because your identity, I suppose, had for a large part had already been formed
Yeah.
in Nigeria.
Yeah. This was, just so quickly, this is what the album is about, Village. It's because I always joined a new village. Like almost every 3 to 4 years, I always found myself in another massive shift throughout my life. I've never been able to be in the same place for too long just because of life. So moving to the UK was just me joining another village, and it was very interesting. It raised me differently. It showed me another side to the coin of like what it's like growing up to be African is almost exactly a polar opposite of what it's like growing up to be British. You're louder, you're more opinionated, you say how you feel, where being African doesn't encourage that. It encourages like how to problem solve. Where being British just tells you how to say how you feel. It doesn't necessarily teach you how to solve them. It just says, just say it, and hopefully someone else will solve them for you. But being African is very much like, suck it up and solve them, which I think both lessons are key. It's important to know how to solve, and it's important to know to always speak your mind. And being African teaches you, like, just go to school, this, and get your education. Where being British dares you to dream a little bit And again, both lessons are very important. So I think it taught me lots of, it gave me more options. It gave me more options as to what I could be in life.
Up until that point then, because you say around 21, that's when you went for it fully. I need this avenue to express myself. But up until that point then, what was your vision of your future?
I was either going to play basketball till I died, or I was going to be a civil engineer. I graduated as a civil engineer at uni, so I would have been shit though. I was terrible. People would have died if I was a civil engineer.
And so luckily you found music.
Yeah.
Do you remember because I imagine you'd been writing poetry up until that point. So
Yeah.
Was there a turning point for you in terms of music that you felt, oh, this is quite good? Or
Yeah. I had a friend. Well, I have a friend. He's passed, but he was always adamant that I should do music, and I was always kind of like, no, I don't really want to do it. And when he passed, my logic was, he's the greatest human being I know. If he could die at 21, then none of us have a chance. So while we're here, we might as well do what we love, because God could call any time, and you're going to answer that call whether or not you like it. So that was my logic, is I know I'm happy here. Yes, I'm a little scared, and it's a little overwhelming because I don't know. I know I'm not as good as I should, but I'm good enough to where I'm happy with what I'm making. So I think in that moment after he's passing, I was just kind of like, balls to the wall. Let's rock and let's see what happens. Just because I don't want to wake up someday and regret never trying.
And then, am I right in saying that kind of Worthy was one of the first songs that kind of gave you some momentum?
Yeah, Worthy was definitely the first song. I think it was the first song that I think was unique of mine. I think before that point I was kind of like you do. I think you imitate the greats till you find yourself. I think you sing like your favorite artist until you one day stumble upon yourself. That this is your version of the story. So Worthy was the first of its kind. There was nothing quite like it when it came out, and it allowed me to be in a space to create more freely.
Yeah, this might be difficult to pinpoint. Well, what was different for you with Worthy than what you had done previously? What was different in terms of kind of what you expressed? Or
I think I was being true to myself in the sense of like, again, goes back to the whole village thing. Like, we are all multifaceted human beings. We're not just jazz, we're not just blues, we're not just hip hop. More than likely, most people listen to most genres. But if you listen to 10 genres that you love, like you might love jazz and you might love hip hop, if you were to be an artist, there's this weird idea that you have to choose between jazz and hip hop. Like, you can't do both. You can do both. You can find a way to mix them. So with Worthy, what we did is we mixed my love for soul and my love for electronical music. And that was when I was serving 100% of myself. With the other stuff, I was serving like 50% of myself. I was only serving the part of me that liked soul. I wasn't serving the part of me that liked hip hop, the part of me that liked blues, the part of me that liked electronical music, that liked Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Fantasy album. I wasn't serving the other side of me. I was only going with the side that liked Al Green and Sam Cooke. Right. So I think when I served everything at once, Worthy was born. And since then, I've just kind of realized that's me.
And is this is the same then true in a way for the way you write lyrics, that you maybe express a little bit more of yourself from then on?
Yeah, I think after that point, there was naturally so much more to talk about, you know, because when you focus on one genre, you write in that style of that genre, you write in the the words that they use. When you're writing soulful music, you say shit like drinking whiskey at the bay or whatever. You never drank no whiskey by the bay. So when you open yourself more to more genres, more tempos, more ways to articulate yourself, there becomes the options get bigger. You have a bigger pot to choose from, words-wise, like subject-wise. You just have so much more at your disposal now. Yes, it's harder because there's so much, but you have the opportunity to talk about a plethora of things that wouldn't have been there before.
So with that in mind, then, did you have an idea of what you wanted out of your debut album? Because there, like you say, there's so much you can talk about.
You know, I've just finished the album, and you know, as an artist, you're always required to sound like you know what's happening. You don't know shit. I think albums, for me anyway, it wrote itself. Like, I was listening to it this morning for the first time in a while. I like to like step away for a while and come back and listen with fresh ears. But like, it just kind of wrote itself. I had an idea of what I wanted to sound like. Like, I have a color scheme that I do. So I write songs in colors when I'm writing a project. There's certain colors I want. So I tick off the colors as they come. When I have my whole palette, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. So that's as far as I go. But as far as songs, I see musicians, I see myself anyway as a vessel. I don't think I am particularly smarter than anybody else or more gifted. I think I just allow the music to flow through me. I allow myself to be just an object, and I just do what the music wants to do. So for the most part, the album just kind of wrote itself, and I just let it happen. And when it was happening, I just kind of piece it together. But it's bigger than me.